podcasting doesn't have to be difficult. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buckle Up!
Week 2, we're doing it.
Episode 2 with Mike and Ami. And let me tell you something. Before we begin, we just took 2 hours to set up this brand new setup, which still looks like balls, and that's okay. But here we are, 2 hours later, worn out.
The second one's the hardest. The first one's fun. It's exciting. Doing it a second time is tough.
Yes, because I would say I'm actually really relieved about the first one. It was like this big weight off my shoulders because we've been talking for such a long time. Years. We should do a podcast. And the should part of doing creative things is like the worst thing. Because the longer the should goes on, like the bigger the should gets, you know? Mm-hmm. And then we put it into tangible form. It was like we gave birth.
And then even you moved here, and I was like, we got to do it the first week you're here. It's never going to happen.
And it didn't happen the first week I was here because we had all these holidays.
Yeah, but we got it. We had it. We made it happen. And how do you feel about the reaction?
I feel awesome. And we got literally 8 followers in a day. But it was like giving birth to a baby. It was like I spread Michael's legs. Okay, I gave him an epidural. I held his hand, and we birthed the podcast together. And he did great. He really did great. He's so strong. He's an amazing, amazing mother. In all seriousness, it's like a funny thing when you, I feel like a lot of people, there's that talk of being scared of judgment and like that the self-judge of yourself when you're doing these kinds of things that are a little out there and weird. And the reaction's been really, really positive. And it's very small in most ways and big in a couple of ways because we put out the first one, we put it out there, and you're right, the first one's more fun because it's all a novelty and it's just like, yeah, we did one. It's easy in a sense to do one.
And it doesn't matter because you don't even know if it's going to ever
Correct.
go out.
And if you do one, you do one. And that's not really the goal, right? You want to be doing a podcast, not one podcast. But even just seeing, I just got a sense of there were people who directly reached out. Hey, so cool. That's awesome. But did you feel that kind of positive energy in the air? And not fluffy like that, but Did you feel that?
Yeah, you feel a little bit of momentum, which is always nice. Any kind of momentum that you feel when you get up in the morning is just fantastic.
Joe's excited. It's like the birth to something as opposed to an idea because I feel like you have endless ideas in your head and there's a weird pattern that happens where if you have the tendency to have ideas stir around in your head of we should, the more you do that becomes a pattern in and of itself. That becomes what you do, saying I should do something.
Yeah, and I think something probably that you and I have both wrestled with over the last couple of years is there's an inherent disappointment when you do something because it's not exactly how you expect it to be.
Try to talk a little closer.
It's not exactly how you expect it to be, and the more things you do and the more disappointment you deal with, the easier it is to just be like, you know what, we're going to try it. It might suck. If it sucks, cool. If it doesn't suck, that'll be great. Most of the people I know, they don't try enough things to ever get past that stage of we'll see how it turns out.
Right. You're saying because once you finally do something, it's always that tinge of disappointment.
It's a death. Yeah, that idea is dying. The idea is really exciting.
Oh, I see.
And then the idea dies. And
you create it and you're killing it at the same time.
And you have to actually deal with what it is.
You have a schmutz on the mustache in case I zoom in.
Oh, thank you.
Right there. Okay.
Is it a good thing?
It's very, very insignificant, but in case we get high resolution on this new camera that we're using, it'll be nice.
Some people
I know what you're saying. I keep hearing Jordan Peterson's voice in my head, and I'm not just doing it to do it. But it's like, what you're killing is that potential of the idea. It had endless potential. Then you do it, man. And, if it's not exactly what you had in mind, that ideal gets totally destroyed and you got to build it back up again.
Right. And it's like a relationship, too. When you're dating, Good Will Hunting is sort of about that.
Right.
Where, it's never as exciting as you hope it's going to be. It's not perfect anymore.
Right. It's funny. It's an interesting tangent that we're on because with relationships, big things like getting married, having kids, all of those things, I think I grappled with this at a very young age and sort of I felt like I went through some things that helped me to understand this at a young age where when something is not living up to its expectation in the moment, you're constantly wrestling with it. Why isn't this what it's supposed to feel like? Why isn't this what it's supposed to feel like? And I feel like part of getting older is realizing there is no supposed to. That is what it feels like.
Right.
And it's actually much more relatable and much more real. Remember that movie 500 Days of Summer?
I love that movie.
Right. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt
You know
has
who wrote it? Michael H. Weber.
Good for you.
Yeah.
A different one.
Different one. But,
Okay. It is recording, yes?
Yeah.
Good. See, we're evidence of the second podcast. That's okay. And I'm going to leave it unedited on purpose to fully expose ourselves. Not in that way. Maybe. Yes, in that movie, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a line, or no, one of the characters has a line where he talks about the girl he's with. He talks about the girl of his dreams, and he describes her, and he says, and she has this, and she has this, and all of these amazing qualities, and then he says, but like whatever her name was, Jennifer, who he's the person he's with, he's like, but Jennifer's not like that. She's not like any of those things. She's better than the girl of my dreams. She's real.
Yeah. I love that.
She's real.
It wasn't Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
No, it was a side
the
character.
guy, but yeah.
But that line was so powerful, and I was like, oh, that one hit like home for me when I saw it. I didn't love the movie. It gets a little too goofy for me, a little too out there, or too meta or whatever it was. But it was like, that was such a powerful thing, and it's so true. Everything that is your dream, your ideal, is just that. It lives here. It lives in the ideal space, and you strive for that, and then you put it into some kind of tangible form. Not to toot our own horn too much, but we did. Like, I'm looking at the logo, I'm looking at the things, I'm seeing people react to something real. A YouTube channel got set up. Go subscribe. Instagram, whatever that is, tangible form. It's like you're creating something, and what you're killing is not it. You're killing its ideal.
Exactly. My wife all the time looks at me and I can just see how disappointed she is. But she sticks around because that's what it's about.
That's it.
That's what it's about.
Once you learn how to settle properly, it's a great thing.
Yeah, and we're very content.
But you know, when you hold your baby, we both have kids. When you hold the baby for the first time, and you're like, you're wondering, how am I supposed to feel right now? That's a hard thing to like let go of this supposed to feel and just feel.
Well, I think and when you look at your kid, or when I look at my kid, there's that feeling of your imperfections are what make you perfect. You don't for yourself. It's so impossible to do. But there's nothing you could do to make yourself imperfect. You're perfect exactly with all your faults. And that's real life. That's what really living is.
How did you get that from looking at her? What do you mean? You're looking at the baby and you're thinking about your imperfections?
No. You look about the baby. You look at the baby and you go.
Did you just drop her and then picked her up? Is that what
and you go, and you're like, you're perfect just the way you are. You should be able to say that to yourself. You should be able to say that with all the things you do also. They're perfect just the way they are.
Right.
But it's tough. I wish I had breathed.
But yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if you want me to talk about this, but Michael, you had your first baby, right? About how long ago?
Almost a year.
Right. All the things people do talk about did come, like how it's supposed to feel, though, eventually. Like the good stuff.
Yeah, I was lucky. I was worried about it. I'm very lucky that, like, the moment she was born, I was very much in love with her.
You were smitten. Yeah.
But I didn't think that would happen.
Right.
I was very nervous.
You were more worried you wouldn't. So you were prepared. You would think I wouldn't feel anything.
Yeah, I thought I'd be walking around with the shame of like I feel nothing. I feel nothing for this person. But thankfully, I do.
Right. I think I forced some cries when my first was born. I was like. But I let it go quick, like right away for like a millisecond. I'm like, am I supposed to cry? But it was awesome.
Oh, I did it.
But I do know that. What?
I cried. Like it just came out.
There you go. You win.
Yeah. No, but there's like guilt about that,
But no, I definitely felt it was sort of like it's overwhelming. You're just like, oh my God. But then like, it's true. We are human beings. And even with your own children, like you bond with them over time.
Yeah.
Not instantly. Like, what we essentially have been talking about with all of this stuff is the romantic and the reality, like how we romanticize things, and there's the romantic fantasy of things, and the reality of things. I saw a Jordan Peterson video where he was talking about dating too, and he was like, "You have a fantasy of the girl, ha, yeah, well, good luck with that." Ha, well, good luck with that. Then it's real, man. Then you got to deal with her flaws, and you got flaws too, so you got to cook something up.
Yeah.
And then you got to pound that over and over. Oh, I went there. But then maybe you deal with those flaws and you reconcile them over time. It's bloody hard, and you live happily ever after.
I think late 20s, early 30s, for me at least, is when I started really grappling with the depth of the romance of what is it that I can actually do.
In every aspect of life?
What kind of people are actually attracted to me, want to be around me. And
this was in the datingness.
Well, it starts with dating, but also like career, like, like, can I write or not? like, can I figure out how to work in finance or not? Like, what am I actually capable of?
Right.
And you either adapt and accept it, or you don't. And I know people now also who are still haven't seemed to accept what they are and what they aren't. And it's tough to watch. But I think you're lucky. If you're able to, you're lucky. It's a gift. And if you can't, it's tough.
In truth, Jordan Peterson, on the serious side of Jordan Peterson, has said something true in these debates I've watched, where he said to somebody, "You don't know yourself as well as you think you do." He's like, he was talking about how authoritarians want to control other people and think they know what's best for them. You don't know what's best for yourself, let alone somebody else. You have no idea who you are. Mm-hmm. You're young in your process. Like, you're just getting to know who you are every decade a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So we think we know, oh, I'm this and I'm that. And that labeling, am I right or am I this, is also a trap a little bit.
Sure.
I, in college, was not I went to music school at Berkeley. And I was like, okay, when I get out of school, I'm going to have to hook up with a music tech guy who knows how to push all these buttons and do all these recordings. Because I'm not that guy. And fast forward like 10 years later, I'm very much that guy, and I'm the go-to guy, and I produce people, and I'm the guy. That's my role. One of my big roles in the band is doing a lot of that stuff and tech. And I'm like, okay, now I identify with that, but only because I had to pursue it. And then you can identify with whatever people, like the labels and stuff. They sort of are good shortcuts, but they can't be traps. Like, you don't know,
right? You
don't know like who you are, and you don't know what anybody else is capable of either, including yourself. So,
right.
I feel like that's trying to put the cart before the horse. I never understood that expression really, but lesson learned in podcasting when you're doing it all yourself. Our camera just died. So luckily we'll have half of this podcast on one camera and half on the other. But the hell were we talking about?
I don't know.
We were talking about the baby of the baby, the rapper, the baby.
The baby.
Oh no, how your work is like a baby. This podcast was a baby. You gave birth to it out your ass, and then and then how the romanticization of life, and then the reality of life.
What we were talking about was some people. Oh no, you were saying where you don't want to limit yourself to a certain identity. Where you say,
yes,
I'm a composer, I'm a tech guy, whatever it is, and I was saying some people have the gift of sort of accepting and moving forward, and some people just don't. And I think it's a gift. Do you think it's something you could learn?
Oh no, I would say this. In general, I was lucky to know what I liked, and that cross section of like knowing you like something and then being good at it. That's a lucky thing. To try to find something you enjoy doing and that you're good at. Because you do meet people who are like, I enjoy making this stuff, but it's like not. But generally with time that can get improved. But you kind of have to always try to find that medium, or like learn to really like something. I think it was, what's his name? The guy who did Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe. His video
He's
of
got a great...
don't love what you do. What did he say? Don't do what you love. Don't follow your passion. Sorry, that was it. It was like a PragerU video. And he said, the theme was, don't follow your passion. Become passionate about what you do.
Yeah, that seems like practical advice.
No, in the sense that, like, do something and do it really well.
Yeah, well, that's,
and then you'll know if you like it.
I think for most of things in my life, that's the secret to happiness. Like figuring out how to do something really well and getting better at it in the process makes me a happy person.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I've always felt, and maybe I'm just being a baby about it, but if I couldn't write, I couldn't really enjoy anything else. And I tried a lot of things.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
But that's very good in a sense.
Right.
That takes the stress off of knowing what you want to do.
For someone like me, would he say, you don't necessarily need to pursue writing, do the real estate thing because that's easy, and just figure out how to be passionate about it.
I think his point, it's like a medrash. I think his point was to say the hard work and the grueling nature of any pursuit comes first before the dream of it, or before the passion and the positivity.
Yeah, I like that.
That's the point. He's not telling you to do one thing or another. He's not saying don't do the things that are lofty. He's saying, like, what's really important first before you can know, just like knowing yourself and knowing who you are. You don't know until you do something to the point where you're so good at it that you can decide. Now, it doesn't mean, you take that for the grain of salt. Don't try everything and work it to the fullest. It's always like, when do you cut the cord and say, this isn't for me, I don't like it? When have you given everything its fair shot? You only can choose certain things at a time. So you find an inkling of something you enjoy. I think in the video he does say that. We'll link in the description below. No, I'm just kidding. We won't. But in the video he says, if you're interested in something, go for it. And then put in the time to like, give that interest its due in a sense. Remember what I was saying about stand-up? I'm not, when I was saying how like, I'm not at the point where it's enjoyable yet because it's still work. It's in the sense of like putting in that development time, that comfort, that experience with doing stand-up in that like the way, as opposed to when I'm doing music where I can really have these shows where I can just really transcend it and let go and have all the fun I want. I know it takes a long time to get there. So like it's like when you first watch somebody play guitar and you're like, I want to do that. Wow. Then you pick up the guitar and 2 weeks in, I hate this thing.
And where do you think that muscle comes from? Where you're able to say, I understand that I need to put in a lot of work before I can really do this thing.
So you are setting up the great debate that we were talking about just before we went on.
Right.
How much of everything in life is fully innate, and how much is like learned and acquired? Right. That's really the bigger question you're asking.
And really the things that you're able to learn, does that come from an innate ability to learn, or not? But specifically with this, and maybe it's a good way into it. Where do you think your ability to put work into something in practice comes from?
Well, it's interesting.
Was it an experience that you had?
The ability to put work into something is deeper than putting work into something.
Right. The ability to sort of look down the road.
Because ability
and be
is
patient.
built up over time by putting in the work. Right. But you're saying there's an ability to do that.
There's an ability to start doing that. There's a capacity to start doing that and stick with it. What was the first thing you started with and stuck with?
Here's what I can tell you. Being naturally good at something is an innate advantage. Like if you can sing and somebody can hear you and go, wow, you should do that. Like that sounded really good. Not everyone's on an equal playing field with that stuff, like naturally born talents, musical abilities, whatever that is, right? And people talk about that all the time, like that fairness or whatever that is. But I've seen plenty in my experience in the game, hard work goes further than talent because at a certain point, talent evens out and everyone's sort of talented in their own way. That contest exhausts itself. And then it's like, who outworks the other? Mm-hmm. But before you get to that point, that initial curiosity, that initial encouragement from teachers and peers and whatever, that comes, that can give me that initial, that probably gave me as a young kid, like, yeah, I want to do that because I like the way it makes me feel. I like the way it makes others feel. I'm getting a good reaction. It was an interesting, encouraging thing. And that came from probably just natural talent and singing and getting a reaction.
Sure.
But going from hobby and everything else to turn into career.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that. You're talking about natural talent versus...
I was saying, I think everyone probably has some experience with being told they're naturally good at one thing or another.
Right.
You were able to take that natural ability and work really hard to make it into something greater.
Right. And at
There's
that
a
point,
lot of
I think
people
that's all a
who
matter.
can't.
But I think that is where the work is in character and determination and all those things. I can't tell if you're saying every single decision is completely not like, to the credit of the person doing it.
It's character and determination. But where does character and determination come from? That's my question.
I would say probably a combination of nature and nurture, lived experience and, temperament. You don't control the temperament necessarily. Everyone's got different temperament.
Right.
But that also doesn't mean, as a matter of degree and extremes, that there's no credit to pursuits and no ability to evolve and improve. Because what you're saying otherwise is very nihilistic or predetermined. Everybody is what they are. Don't do anything else. Don't pursue something unless... Because that's also... It falls into the same thing. Are you labeling yourself a person who evolves or a person who doesn't evolve? Mm-hmm. Like, which one are you? And because we don't know, no one's in touch with the higher power to know which one they're supposed to be. You just have to do.
You're right. So I think that attitude is what allows you to do.
Right.
And I think that attitude is a gift, and it's not necessarily something everybody can learn. And
This is why,
and it brings us back to the beginning.
This is why
I
all
think
the
it's a little bit determined.
it's why all the follow your dreams porn that you see all over Instagram and Entrepreneurville and and business influencers is total bullshit.
Right.
There's the people who make the bullshit and the people who consume the bullshit.
There's a tiny fraction of those people that are going to actually change.
Yes.
And most of the people will just watch it and continue watching it until they're dead.
But because nobody knows their future or what they're predestined to do, then we don't know.
We can go in circles all day with this.
What I'm saying is, that doesn't mean everyone's free from judgment and accountability of themselves.
I'm not. I mean,
You are saying that.
I do kind of think that.
It's the Sam Harris thing.
I also don't.
Everyone questions Sam Harris's whole thing on free will, right? That he makes a very, I think, concise case that every sentence, even the words that I put together right now, is being formulated in my head from thoughts and neurons firing off that all, and you can predict it before I say it. Is it me? And then there's the compatibilist argument, which says like whatever's happening in here is me. But he makes a deeper point that I can't articulate. I'm not sophisticated enough to do that. But I can sort of follow his argument. Yeah. And then everyone's like, well, then what about murderers and all these other people? And he takes more of, I think, of a utility, pragmatic approach. Well, they still need to be locked away because we have to have a functioning society and morality. But it can be very damning what you're saying and very encouraging what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because then someone will label themselves, I'm not that guy that evolves.
But if they're the kind of guy that evolves, they'll go, I'm not the kind of guy that doesn't evolve.
Well, then at the end of the day, if this is like, is God there or not, and it's a circle, then the circle continues and life moves on, and we'll see where the chips fall.
Yeah. Well, it brings me to the next point.
What type of person are you? Because I'm flipping it back at you.
I think I'm the type of person that
is aware of this.
That's aware
problem.
and evolves and has some sort of intrinsic motivation to change and help myself and improve. But I look at people close to me who might not necessarily they haven't done it yet, and I just feel very blessed.
What's the
I don't
difference?
know where it comes from.
What's the
I'm
difference?
just happy I have it.
Right, but your demon or your inner like self that you're battling is bigger than mine. You think?
Bigger?
Like harder to fight, like the guy who's your inner critic, who's preventing some of the stuff that you've struggled with, sometimes output of things or like over perfectionism and those kinds of things.
No, that's not. I'm not comparing who has like a harder time with it. Okay. I think it's like binary. Either you can.
So you're on one side of it or another.
Yeah.
And you feel fortunate.
You can either help yourself or you can't help yourself.
So you feel you're on. You're not. We weren't talking my experience versus yours. You were just saying that on the binary of are you on that side of it or on the other.
I'm talking about your experience versus somebody who calls you up once a week and goes, "I have this idea. I have another idea.
Yeah,
I have this other idea." Yeah, and you're like, cool.
I did come up in living in LA. This is I try not to be judgmental. Everybody has their own things going on, but just for shorthand, I came up with the term. This is gonna make me sound like such a douchebag. I told this to you.
So
privately.
don't say it. You could.
Why?
All right.
What can you do? I'm maybe partially douchebag. I have to accept that. But it was a term called collab, and I don't like. I came up with the term. I'm a douchebag. Classic LA bullshitters. It was just something I said to you when just trying to describe the different experiences I was having over the course of the last 10 years in LA. You have to sort of filter like when you're like getting involved with people creatively, who has things going on and who doesn't, and there is like a classic LA bullshitter, a collab, or I think I'm going to drop the term now. It's nasty.
Well, they live everywhere. It's not an LA thing.
Okay, but I noticed it a lot in LA because they definitely live in LA a lot. And people have said this. There was somebody on Rogan who said, nobody ages in LA. You could be like 47 working on a screenplay in a Starbucks, and that's just allowed, in your pajamas. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. But the idea is like, what I noticed, the patterns of behaviors of different people was that, and like who I was involved with, is that people who have a lot going on, like real things going on creatively, that you want to kind of be around. They don't talk about it first thing when you bump into them. It's not something they drop. They're not constantly talking about it. They're working. And the people who have not much going on are talking a lot. Oh, yeah. So I've got this thing. I pitched this thing. I'm working with this director guy. And we'll see what happens. And then, because there's a lot of insecurity there. And I get it. Classic LA bullshitter is mean. So I don't really love it. But the idea is that you can kind of tell the difference at a certain point. When someone's like, yeah, I got this thing. Yeah, it's going to be huge, man. It's going to be huge.
Right.
As opposed to the guy who's been in it. And that was kind of where I sort of leaned into, where it was like, I know that everything almost happens. That's kind of how things go. The grind, there's constantly so many changing factors, and you have to like let those disappointments just kind of roll off your shoulder and let it be part of the process and move on. And so the people who are working aren't really talking about it because they've seen firsthand how many things fall through, how many things they're just kind of like, I'm in it and I'm working head down. Shit, next.
Right.
That's the expression I learned. Shit, next.
Right. And so I look at a person like that, and I look at a person who can't do that, and I just say like a nebach, like I don't blame you. I just feel for you.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. How to
Yeah,
help.
I'm not trying to cast aspersions. I was just talking shorthand when I said it to you. And
Yeah.
and I'm not. Yeah, it's not like they're bad
It's good,
people,
and we
but
each
it's
have
just
that,
like
and you have a part of you. You have a collab in yourself also somewhere.
I'm also trying to not look as bad a person on the podcast as you are, but it's, in truth, you're right. I shouldn't. It's fine. But it was just a matter of like, honestly being kind of very not harsh about it, but okay, like what's going on here? Who like reading different kinds of people and what they're doing.
So where it brings me is to a place not of being harsh at all, but
Empathy.
but of not judging, right? Of not judging and being like, I don't like blame you, and I just I don't think it's your fault.
But what
I
if
don't,
someone
like,
was
I'm not
pitching
judging
you? What if someone was like, hey, let's write together, let's make something, and you sense that they're
What I do is I say yes, and then I just end up in years of badness.
exactly.
That's what I do.
I'm not saying
That's
it for the
what I
sake
do.
of judging or boosting myself up on some sort of pedestal. Like that's why.
No,
it
I know
sounds
that. I know that.
In other words,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's that in when you're like networking, which is a dirty word.
Yeah.
You're just sort of assessing like when you're talking to people and you want to like actually put time and effort into things if it's going to be something that amounts to something that you feel like it's going to go somewhere. That flakiness that people talk about in LA, it's not really a real thing. You just have to surround yourself with people that you like are inspired by and then you admire their work and their efforts and all of that.
Yeah.
And that's but the great debate over which side of it you're on, I guess we never know. And what do you make of? Here's the sticking point, in terms of people who've been at like rock bottom, that became zillionaires at 55 and turned it all around. They crossed the binary.
Yeah. So
you-
for them, I would say they had a fortunate sort of turn of circumstance, which was just hitting rock bottom, which doesn't look like that to them, obviously. But that's also some sort of fortunate circumstance. Like it wasn't necessarily something they did to hit rock bottom. I don't know. Maybe it's easier to hit rock bottom than I think. But
Yeah, I would just say I just have to check the recording because
Yeah,
I don't
it's
want to
still
record the whole
going?
podcast. Still going. I would say it's you don't know. People do turn things around. It does happen. But you're just saying
no. And for me, I hit my own sort of rock bottom, and I decided I'm going to move forward in one direction because I had to. But I look back at that and going, and like I'm grateful for hitting that rock bottom. I couldn't have designed that.
What was
it
your
just
rock,
sort of happened.
What was your rock bottom?
What was my rock bottom?
Tell the folks.
What was I think when I turned 27, I had a very, very clear thought on my 27th birthday. And I thought to myself, Kurt Cobain died when he was 27. And he'll be remembered for generations. And everything the guy who's going to be remembered for generations, everything he'd ever done, he had done before he was 27. I'm 27, and I can't think of anything that I could be proud of in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had this very clear thought of like, I have to get started. I just have to get started.
Interesting.
And it came I was reading The Fountainhead at the time, and also there's a scene in there. Have you read it?
I read Atlas Shrugged. You got to just pick one.
Yes.
They're all humongous books, and Atlas Shrugged was the one that changed my life. But
So The Fountainhead changed my life.
Whatever one you get to
It was
first.
this scene specifically where there's like, if you haven't read it, there's like the artistic architect.
spoiler alert: The Fountainhead.
And like the business guy who's trying to get
Howard
it
Rourke.
Howard Rourke is like the cool guy who sticks to his guns and just follows his vision no matter what anyone says. And then there's the other guy who doesn't, and he tries to have a career. And then the whole thing happens, and years later, the artist guy ends up on the top, the career guy ends up on the bottom, and the career guy brings a painting to the artist guy, and he goes, it's been a while, but I want to start getting into painting again. What do you think? And he shows him his painting, and the artist guy looks at it, he tears it up, and looks at him, and he goes, "It's too late." And
Did
when
that happen in The Fountainhead?
it happens, and when I read that,
That's such objective dickishness.
it is. But when I read that, whatever you think of the scene, this thing went off where I went, there's this pursuit I want to do, this dream I have, and I'm taking it for granted that whenever I get the wherewithal to do it, it'll be there. But what if it's not there anymore? And that fear of like, what if I can't do it? Just it really frightened me.
You got a sense of urgency.
Yeah, and just at that age, I had nothing. I couldn't get a job. I had gotten laid off from like.
It was you were in the startup world.
In the
That was
startup
the
world.
thumbtacked.
Oh no, well that was my own thing. Then I had like a job, and the company laid everyone off.
Was that
Saver,
Saver?
yeah, which was awesome, but like it didn't work out for me professionally. I got another job after that. It didn't work out for me professionally. Like these companies got bought and laid people off, but whatever. I wasn't chosen to stick around, and I was just like, I don't have to be a millionaire to start writing. I can be broke and start writing, and so and whatever. I was just sad and afraid and had nothing else going on, and I was like, let me just start. There's people who are sad and afraid and have nothing else going on that go, oh,
we don't have to talk about them anymore. They're failures.
Whatever, yeah. Whatever, that was me. Yeah. But and I look back at that and I was very
you started hearing in the air.
And then the universe gave me good feedback. I started and people were like, oh, I like this thing.
Right.
You should do that.
That's interesting. I had a thought based on what you said. You said that you were given the sense of urgency, and then what happened next? I mean, what was the next pursuit?
I started writing. Right after that, I took a job at a company that I didn't want and didn't like, but I was like, this is what I do. I do product management. This is what I do. But while I was doing that, I started writing. I started making a documentary about my friends, like Squits and Mo. They had this microbrewery, and I was doing the job as much as they needed me to do it, and I was like really putting my full heart into making this documentary on my own. And that was sort of the first creative endeavor, solely creative. It wasn't like like a startup, which is creative but also business and all that. It was just like, I want to do this thing and I want to be the guy who's doing it.
But were you writing daily at that point and you hadn't been? What changed routine-wise? Did you start implementing different things?
Nothing changed routine-wise.
Your mindset changed on mission. You were mission-driven.
Yeah.
There's a great book. I definitely want to talk about that and repeated episodes on this podcast because it'll speak to a lot of things we're talking about. It's the Scott Adams book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. Because you said a line in there where you're like, I had done all those things that didn't work out, so screw all that, right? But his book illuminated something really interesting to me, which put that sense of urgency in its sort of proper place, because he worked in the corporate world for years, right? And
who's Scott Adams?
Scott Adams. Okay, so Scott Adams is the creator of the Dilbert comic strip. That's what he's most known for. And then he became pretty popular in the Trump era as a guy who predicted Trump's victory in 2016.
Right.
Before anybody did, because he's also a trained hypnotist and noticed Trump's abilities as a persuasion expert and master, and master of persuasion. And he called the election for Trump like in 2015 during the early primaries when there was like still 15 candidates and everybody laughed. And then he won the nomination. I kept telling you at the time, I'm telling you Trump's going to win. Didn't I tell you at the time? I've been listening to this guy, Scott Adams, and it's just crazy what he's picked up on with Trump. But
and then Trump won, and Scott Adams decided to throw it all away by make videos about Trump.
Yes, exactly. Well, the thing is, if I was going to turn you on to Scott Adams, and Trump is so divisive, you're probably not going to read this book. But the point is, this has nothing to do with it. I discovered him because he was promoting his book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. And he talks about his experience of working in banking for 25, a long time. A very, very long time before he was and then he did these affirmations to himself that he was going to be a famous cartoonist one day. But what happened, right? His main thesis in the book is that everything that you do, you could look at as a failure if it doesn't reach the goals you set out. But he says goals are for losers. It's all about systems. It's all about putting into place systems and looking at everything that you do as what did you gain from that experience? What did you learn? So you learned probably different sorts of skill sets at all of these things. So they were really all macro failures, but miniature successes, or macro successes, miniature failures, however you want to look at it. Each one was giving you skill sets that would serve the next endeavor.
Very much so.
So you could look at one pursuit. I was doing this movie, and the movie didn't get the festival I wanted to get to, and it sort of got shelved. But you're not looking at the other stuff. I learned cinematography. I learned how to scout for locations and casting and production. I actually gained all of these things from doing that movie, even if the movie itself's intended goal didn't happen. So his comic book is Dilbert, which is about the corporate world. That was his lived experience, and the only way he was able to create it was by doing all that and really being able to write something that resonated. Yeah. You have to live real life in order to create real art. So he talks about that. So then I started looking at everything I've done as not like I just keep failing at different things. That band didn't do this, and this band didn't do that, and all these different things on the way actually serves to teach you all these other things and following that course. And it's maybe a super hyper positive mindset, but it's not untrue.
Right. And looking back, I think that's an amazing attitude. Looking back,
yeah,
it's
and
harder.
What I'm saying is, it's more than just an attitude. It's actually true. It's like
true. Right?
It's like, oh, you're right. I learned even the things that don't work are very valuable. Like I learned what not to do in that space. So, like when we hit the ground running here, right?
Totally.
You're like all like, Ami, how are you doing the Instagram? Right?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even next week, it took us 2 hours today. It'll take half an hour.
Right, because now we know. Okay, this is the shot, but it took us a second to find the shot, or we could say we couldn't. We failed so many times.
Totally.
But like I hit the ground running, and I even saw myself doing this. Yeah. I was like, wow, graphics, this, that, dimensions, YouTube chat, all those things would have been insanely overwhelming to me just 2 years ago. I'm like, I don't know, and like and even the experience of gaining the authority to know what is the thing you're supposed to do properly. What does a proper YouTube channel kind of look like? Mm-hmm. It's not like I really know, but I know a little bit more now, having done really shitty ones and really like amateur looking things. That cringy stuff just is actually success,
right?
Because it's building blocks to things.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
do
how to fail at everything and still win big.
Do you still watch Scott Adams?
No, because I was really interested in his takes on Trump. Because in the age of Trump. Here we go. He was the only guy who could make sense of things.
Yeah, and I watched
Trump,
there was morning coffee thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sit down, buckle up. Look at Trump.
You just want to like.
Yeah, I know. Scott, blow your nose. Living in the suburbs, there's just constant grass. I don't know if you guys can hear that. They're cutting grass outside. I was very intrigued to check out all things Scott Adams because the news narrative and the media covering. What are you doing? We're live. The news narrative covering Trump was so. Thank you. That's our invisible assistant. Anytime he said something, a tweet, like you knew that CNN was overreacting or willfully misinterpreting it, but you also sometimes were like, that can't be, because Scott Adams' like premise or whatever, Scott Adams' take on Trump was that most of his things were very intentional and crafted and part of this masterful plan of how to manipulate and persuade, and sometimes he would treat like these military families, they're fucked up. Like, you're like, no, that can't be part of, like, it seemed to me impulsive and sometimes, and oftentimes pathological and crazy. But you knew it wasn't fully crazy. But sometimes you're just like, how are you going to explain that one? Kim Jong-un, he's a cunt bag. What are you going to do? And you're like, and then Scott Adams gets on and says, so why did he use the word cunt? Think about it. What does cunt mean in Korean? It means unbelievable. There was always some hidden reason, and every time Scott said it, it would sound crazy, and then a couple weeks later, everything Scott said that would happen on the world stage. Like, everyone's like, we're going to war with North Korea. But in all seriousness, he would say, what Trump is doing is A/B testing. He's saying something crazy, then he's walking it back 2 weeks later, and he's seeing how the crowd reacts, and then the policy that he actually arrives at happens to be the one that they'd settle on. And it turns out it looks like Trump compromised, but he really didn't. So as you follow the overarching narrative and the arc, like the accuracy of Scott Adams was really insane and undeniable if you were following it. And it provided some kind of grounding in that age of like, what is going on in the world and what's true? Because that's what happened. Truth died big time in the Trump era. Like, even the ability to discuss what we all thought was just basic truths about things. Because you knew that CNN mainstream media stuff is just like overplaying their hand and have cried wolf, right? Because they're saying things about Trump that are just, can't be, or like everything Trump would say, like he was like, Trump could say something mundane and really jokish. We had a great time, went to the border, it was crazy times at the border. Trump calls immigrants crazy. Like that's what they would do, cut and paste the text. But then, you can't, and then a lot of things that were indefensible statements, and Scott Adams kind of provided this weird space to.
Yeah, during that whole time,
But I don't care how he wants to translate Biden. Or like I'm kind of like it served its purpose anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean it's funny thinking back to that time in like 2016. I immediately got off Twitter when that happened because I had followed it religiously.
A little closer.
I had followed it religiously through the election, and I was just like, this was a waste of time. I didn't like. Everyone told me he was going to lose, and he won. So I got to follow. I got to find new people to follow because I was.
You lost your trust in the establishment institutions.
No, it wasn't even trust. It was just more utility. Like the articles I was reading by the writers I was reading, they were so wrong. Why would I keep reading them? Like I have to just find
credibility.
The people who had been right.
Credibility.
Yeah, and not in the sense that it's now like they had some sort of ulterior motive. I thought they had just sort of missed the point. So I wanted to find people who hadn't missed the point. So he was one of the first people I found also, and now like I think Crystal and Cigar are sort of my news source for people who I think aren't missing the point.
Yeah, we're gonna lose you on that mic.
Oh, sorry, who aren't missing the point. But yeah, over the last couple of years has been this like odyssey through like alternative
who's
sources.
Crystal and Cigar again? They're what's the name of their show?
They were on The Hill for a while, and then they broke with them. Talked a lot of shit about The Hill, which I thought wasn't a great look for them. And they have their own media company now called Breaking Points, and they're on YouTube.
But you kind of hate them now too, because you have these weird like on again off again relationships with people.
Yeah, I think I dove a little bit too deep. I dove a little bit too deep.
Because now they're so rebel, and they love that. They love themselves too much.
Right? Now, when they were with The Hill, there was this awesome tension between their viewpoint and this very establishment viewpoint. And it was really interesting to watch that tension work out, and I thought the product was always good. Now that they've gone on their own, they've gone out on their own with this thesis of mainstream media is lying to you. Everything is about wage inequality, and it's a class war. And now they're so incentivized to make that the narrative of everything they do. Everything's about class war. Everything's about wage inequality. And when they cover things like Israel, that's also about the woke versus the non-woke. It's also about inequality. It's also about the wealth gap.
Are they woke?
No. Saying they'll. It's
about that.
It's about that, and you're like, well, I don't think the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is about that.
So they're viewing it.
But what else are you missing the point on in America?
So they're looking at everything through a modern lens,
right?
That current lens we're in, and applying it to everything.
Exactly, because they've gone on their own. They're like they have this thesis that they have to constantly be shoving down your throat, which isn't that different than Fox News and CNN. They also have a thesis, and they also have a narrative. And
they become a trap to their own brand.
I think so, and I wonder what they would say about that. I would love to talk to them about that.
He kind of has the vibe to me of like a dude at a college party who everyone's like, he's so smart. And then you're the only guy who's just like, what?
Yeah, well...
And you hate it because he's kind of like saying smart stuff to get in girl's pants at the party. Yeah. And you're just like... And you're like, I know I'm supposed to like this guy because everybody does, but I don't.
Well, then you realize he's like 27, and you're like, you can't know that much.
He has that, like, he has a graduate student vibe.
Yeah, well, he says he was like a journalist for a long time. If you do the math, he covered the CIA for like a year and a half before he went on his own and like started being a correspondent.
Sure, I'm talking bullshit, but whatever. It's just a vibe.
No, I'm saying it's not that long. Oh, like he doesn't have enough experience to talk that authoritatively and everything. But he seems like a nice guy.
If you compare the different qualities during the industrial revolutions from the different societies, I mean, what we're seeing today, and you're just like, what we're seeing today? It's very Bill Maher.
His realignment. He has his own podcast with this guy named Marshall something.
Okay.
Who's awesome, and he has like a lot of like the pomp sometimes Cigar has of like how sure he is about his own opinion.
Right.
This other guy I think is like
more real and gritty.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. Marshall something.
What's that one?
Marshall something. It's called the Realignment Podcast with Cigar and Marshall.
That's what we do. We lift other people up, man. Here at Buckle Up, we lift them all up. The Realignment
Podcast.
We'll link it in the description. If we remember to do that, we will link it in the description.
Yeah. And who are our sponsors today?
We should. Oh, that'd be a fun bit. We should read fake sponsors. Let's do it on the fly. Alexander's Ass Cream. Thank you so much. We're going to read our sponsors from Alexander's Ass Cream, based in Russia. Interesting. If you've ever felt that itch, that weird sensation, moisture from down below, and you need something to alleviate it, Try Alexander's ice cream. Wipe once, wipe twice, no more rash.
Buckle up for 10% off.
Buckle up for 10% off in the promo code Alexander Ice Cream, bought from Russia, sponsored by Donald Trump. Very good.
Yeah.
Alexander's ice cream's made in Russia. I don't trust it. I use Trump's ice cream. Fantastic stuff. We make it in Mar-a-Lago. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Wipe your ass, folks. Keep it nice and dry. No one's got a drier ass than me. No moisture. No moisture. There's so many Trump impressions out there. Remember we saw Tyler Fisher?
He did a good one. Didn't he?
Really good one.
Yeah.
But like, he's the one president. Like when Frank Caliendo cracked George Bush, remember? That became what everybody did with impressions. It's always like somebody cracks the code, and then you get impressions of that.
The
that
Sebastian
impression.
Maniscalco one now is going around.
Yes. I'm friends with a few of those guys who do it. Nicky Smiggs and a bunch of guys who were known for Sebastian. I was doing it before I posted anything about it. We used to, they're back there, these people. You know,
Do you see the guy who put his mask on like Sebastian Maniscalco?
yeah, that's Nicky Smiggs.
It was great.
He was just like, was it Nicky Smiggs? What? I don't know. Maybe
I don't remember who it was. It
I
was
have
just
to
amazing.
check. But what did he do? It was like a.
The whole thing.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure he's a.
fantastic.
We made some. We made a video together a little while ago. He's a comic impressionist. If we're talking about him, because he's known for it. But then people are like, you find what it is about the person. Someone cracks the code, and then you get a lot of
And
variations.
who is it
But
now?
Trump's. There's been from the get-go a bunch of different angles on Trump, and they're all good. But they point. There's like soft Donald Trump. I can't do all of them. I do mine, but there's like, remember that guy? It was a debate. It was on Comedy Central. The first guy I ever saw do Trump, I don't remember his name, but it was him and a Bernie Sanders impersonator.
On Comedy Central?
Yeah, and it was like having a debate about chickens. Remember, Bernie Sanders was talking chickens, and there's like, we got a lot of problems. He was talking like, it was a little bit, it wasn't quite accurate, but he was like, I got a lot. I forget what the show was. Two comics. He was the first guy to sort of do it. Then the Alec Baldwin. Very much like this. Remember, it was sort of like really, really nice.
I literally have never seen it.
Yeah,
I gave that 0% of my attention.
Why? You hate Alec
The whole
Baldwin?
SNL making fun of Trump thing is so
yeah.
absurd to me. Yeah.
Yeah, he was funny. I think Alec Baldwin was
Yeah.
funny, but SNL's low-hanging fruit comedy
Yeah.
for that whole period sucked because all the late nights too. The comedy was awful, the worst it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because basically it was everyone thinks this is funny, right? No,
it's
the assuming common knowledge thing.
It's toothless.
Yeah,
It's toothless.
exactly right. Exactly right. I think it was Norm Macdonald. May his memory be blessed.
Man.
But he said something about that in interviews, like about what's like not funny about the current state of comedy. It's not.
what'd he
It's
say?
not. There's an interview, we have to find it, but he said something about like profound. He was just like, it's not ballsy to make fun of Donald Trump. You know?
Yeah. Malcolm Gladwell had it on his podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does it. I used to really love it. He did an episode about satire and about how there's this Israeli show that is satire, and he explained how SNL is not satire. And I always go back to that when I think about SNL. If you can find it on the podcast store. The Malcolm Gladwell episode about satire is awesome. Yeah, basically,
What happened was
they're not-
SNL basically became The Daily Show. The Daily Show during Bush era was what SNL became till now, in a way, when it comes to politics. The Daily Show, after a while, when you would tune in on it, it wasn't comedy anymore. It was a picture of Bush going, and he goes, eh! And he would and like then there would be this like, come on, this is the president. Colbert at the time was doing a character.
that was
and then-
satire.
Satire.
That was satire.
But like the Daily Show, when it's preachy guys, this comedy, it's just not that funny.
Right.
And
It
it's not
doesn't
that
make me laugh.
ballsy.
Right.
And then SNL became that too, where it's
Yeah.
just like all we're doing is just pointing to the low hanging fruit of like, what a clown.
I wonder.
It's just like it shows you're like sealed off.
Yeah.
You're sealed off from something. When you're blind to the comedy, you're blind to the truth a little bit. That's what it felt like, really.
Right, and you can't make a real joke about it. Lorne Michaels been doing it so long. I wonder if he is just sitting back and thinking to himself, like, well, there's going to be a decade where SNL won't be that great, but we'll recover after.
I love how you
all
get
of
into
it.
these heads of these powerful people and presume their thoughts.
He's probably comfortable with it. Like, this isn't a great time for comedy. We'll weather the storm and then we'll pick back up.
People don't talk about Lorne Michaels enough in the sense that there is no one like him who has been around through the decades
Doing it
and
for-
some of the
yeah.
most, quote, powerful, notable, famous people on earth still kind of bow to him
Yeah.
in a way. Not the puppet master, but like I was watching a Dennis Miller podcast with all these huge like comics really exude a lot of confidence on the circuit in the public sphere on podcasts. Like you're like no one can touch them. When like you watch Bill Burr or something like that, like that's intimidating. There's so much like confidence there.
Yeah.
And then Lorne Michaels comes up, and there's even Norm Macdonald who stuck it to SNL in a good way. But he's like, when you're there, I mean, Lorne. Like there's this everyone's deferential.
Yeah, Jim Brewer was the same way on.
Well, and he left, but they talk about Norm in this sort of like daddy, like not to knock it, but like Dennis Miller was like, he still walks in the room, he still gives me the heebie-jeebies. Never done Dennis Miller. Never done it, but he's kind of got away. He's always kind of talking on that single breath before he gives out the breath. Never really done it, Dennis Miller. But Lorne Michaels comes in the room, baby, and you're still feeling the heebie-jeebies. I don't know what. How was it?
That was pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I've always liked watching Dennis Miller, folks, because he's been a little bit off the cuff. But he said, Lorne Michaels still walks in. I still get the heart sinks there into the pants a little bit, shakes around, makes me feel a little. Lawrence just got that power over you people.
Does he have a podcast, Dennis Miller?
I don't know what he has, but I saw it's YouTube-y stuff. I saw him with a bunch of comics shooting the shit.
Does he have gray hair? Is he like old gray?
Probably. He's been like 60 for 40 years.
Nice hair.
He's that guy. I like even people who like don't give a shit about anything. It's like Lorne Michaels comes up and all of these people who he's kind of I mean not that he's single-handedly made, but have launched from SNL. It's like you forget like Adam Sandler, Chris Rock. You just forget like who went through SNL.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And if Lorne Michaels was just the guy to launch these people, like our pop culture is shaped by him, and he's not like featured on CNN's Heroes. I'm not saying I don't know him as the like. It's just crazy. He's the one person you can like single-handedly.
Right.
Like Spielberg launched careers of specific actors, like 5 of them, but like.
Right, he has like set the tone for comedy for decades in America. I don't know.
I don't know if all comedy. I just mean entertainers out there who've made such impacts. There's been so many people connected and have gone through that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
But when Jim Brewer talked about the climate of SNL, that was like,
it sounded awful. Yeah. But then when he got to Lorne Michaels, he was like very like, but he was a nice guy. He was great.
Lorne was always nice to me, man.
Right. It's like viciously ripping
Jim
apart
Brewer.
everyone else. But Lorne Michaels was nice.
I wonder if Jim Brewer is still about to get his like launch to like like that status of being of how known you are, and you think like he's like a generally somewhat famous person. People I don't know if he gets stopped every 2 seconds, but there's like those levels of sort of notoriety, how known people are. I'm not getting the right word. What's the word I'm thinking of? Not notoriety. Notoriety, whatever. Like a staple, a name. You say Jim Brewer to everybody?
Yeah.
Not really, but about a good amount of people.
His face, I think everyone would know.
Yeah. But no, I feel like other comics talk about him as like underrated, underappreciated. Yeah, Joe Rogan's talked about it. I probably think I've watched this. He murders.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get his am I saying this like comments? What's the word?
Comeuppance.
He doesn't get his fair share of attention for his skill and level.
Like if he died, God forbid, today, he would have the same reaction as people had for Norm. Like he was actually one of the greatest. I don't think so.
No. And Norm had this weird space he was in like no other, where every comic had to be the respect of almost everybody.
Yeah.
And yet not the admiration. But not everyone was a fan of Norm. But like and commercially, but he had the respect of certainly all the comics.
Right.
But with like Brewer and guys like that who have amazing working careers, and it looks from my perspective like that's props to them for all they've accomplished.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm noticing it recently with a comic that I've been following for a while. It's happened. Jessie Kirson, do you know who she is?
Yeah, she was just
on Rogan.
Yeah.
I hope I'm getting her name right. Jessie Kirson. She's so super funny. I've been following her Instagram more recently in the past couple of years. I saw her when we were in high school at the Cellar with Modi. Were you with me?
It's possible.
Oh my God.
It's possible. I don't remember it though.
She was on the stage with Modi. She did this baby crying bit. I must have been with you because who else did I go to the Cellar with? Was that when Chris Rock came in? No. But she was on there and she called Modi up and the two of them were everything. And she did this baby cry bit where she was like,
oh yeah, she's very grotesque.
Yes, but over the years it's gotten a little bit different. She used to be a little bit more, I don't know. I saw her live then, years ago.
Yeah, but she's been doing it forever.
And she lost a lot of weight over the years.
Yeah.
She looks a little different than then. But now she's getting this new kind of recognition because of
I see what you're saying.
There are comics getting rebirthed by social
Right.
media in a way who've been doing it forever, but before then they were
Yeah.
waiting on
and
green
it
lights from.
happens with like Tig Notaro kind of had that. Louis C.K. had it himself.
Yeah, and they
before he blew up.
because they were in the world of trying to get a sitcom. Like that was the way you did it. How else do you get to people? Like you get your shows, you do your clubs, and you try to get a sitcom. And then with social media, the people who took to it well are getting that kind of recognition. And now she's on. I just noticed it with certain people. Like I was following her, Bill Burr, like I think produced or executive produced one of her specials. I'm not sure about that, but he was involved in some way and gave her props. And Tim Dillon just tweeted about her. She's the funniest person on earth right now is Jessie Kirsten.
Can you imagine what?
Yeah, and no, and just to finish the point, like then she's on Rogan. I'm noticing these patterns of things, and I'm like, it gives a lot of validity to playing the long game.
Right. And in that long game, can you imagine what it's like to see someone start way later than you? Like she probably was with Aziz Ansari, when he first started. She had been doing it for 15 years already. And then to see someone blow up so big.
Yeah.
And you're kind of in the same place you've been. I can't imagine how
Well,
difficult
yeah,
that is.
yes, I can see why that can. I don't. Look
She's
at it.
probably saw tons of people.
That's the
begin
game.
And
that is the
and
game.
it's
But
wild.
I tend to take an attitude, and maybe I'm born with it. But I'm always encouraged by other people's success, not discouraged. Because I'm like, okay, that's another example. They're doing something and they hit something in a certain way that worked. It means there are solutions and ways to figure it out that work. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get my turn. Because I don't believe in the turn kind of thing. It's just like the more you're at it, you're not hitting your intersection point where you found the thing that, but as long as you keep putting in the time and the work and the effort, you are making these inroads,
Would she be one of the only sort of female comedians over like 40 to sort of get that comeuppance? I can't think of.
Jane Lynch.
She's like a performer. She's
in
an actress.
the comedy world, comedy actress.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
when did Morgan Freeman get famous? It's probably
So for men, but I'm thinking for women, like how many later in life do they get that chance? It's not fair.
I think it's more like imagine someone's like burrowing through a cave and they're trying to get to the other side, right? And when Jesse may have started, or any of these comics who've been around for a little bit longer, they had certain tools.
Yeah.
They had these tiny little pickaxes. And so maybe I said Morgan Freeman, so I'm thinking of Shawshank with Andy Dufresne.
I like to think the last thing that went through the warden's head, besides the bullet.
Besides the bullet. He became the narrator after that movie. Maybe I just miss my friend, Andy Dufresne. But they started with that, so they're just doing it for much longer. Yeah. And then by the time Aziz comes around, it's 10, 15 years later, and he's starting with a sledgehammer that can make a little more. There are different tools at different things, and it's a different environment. And so you see that happen, and it's not like it's like he's only been doing it 2 years, I've been doing it 40. It's like, no, when I started, this is what I was working with. This was the context, this was the environment. And if Aziz and I started at the same time, maybe that would have happened. But in the end, you just have to do what you do and take the opportunities where they come.
She must love doing stand-up.
Oh, yeah. I must love it. And she's very good at it, and her crowd work is amazing. I watch it all the time on Instagram, and it's super, super funny. And I have to watch the Rogan episode because I was just very happy to see that. It just means like every time I see an instance of the long game working or even the short game, when I saw the stuff happening with TikTokers and stuff blowing up and like people getting audiences, I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it and make my mark. Not, that's not fair. How come he got that? I did it on this. Maybe I wasn't doing something right. Clearly I wasn't. It's like the world is telling you what's working and what's not working. So experiment. Okay? Anyway, so I'm encouraged by people's success very often. I really rarely get territorial. It can sting, but it also tells you, like, okay, good. Like there's fish in the water to catch.
Right.
People are catching them all around you, so they're in there. If nobody caught a fish, you'd be like, this is all hopeless. But if you were seeing fish everywhere, you'd be like, I'm keeping my rod in and I'm going to keep on.
You have a very positive attitude.
Yeah.
That's nice.
See?
Yeah.
I'm going to do this the rest of the show. All I'm saying is, what I'm saying
right.
untrue? Is it blindly optimistic?
No, I don't think so.
In the music game, when I would see people doing it, I would be like, that's awesome. But I would also, because I believe in that, it's really often attributed to, I don't believe in somebody handing out golden tickets. It's just not how things, from my experience, it's not true. If that was my framework, it would be like, that's not fair. I want the ticket. Why didn't I get it?
Yeah.
But I think I really attribute a lot of this, and I've seen most successful cases, like that guy works his ass off. Like I saw somebody building it up on social media, and there's this artist I follow. that I did a show with, I put him on a bill with a bunch of us years ago, and like so I knew him then. What was his name? I'm blanking. Will you come over, right? Come over and you stay the night. You know that song? But if the world was ending, you'd come over, right? What's his name? I'll have to. Oh, it's killing me. Anyway, great artist, singer, songwriter. I'm singing it so people who know would know.
Doja Cat?
No, he's not fully there yet. But the first time I heard Anderson .Paak 2, I was like, this is going to be huge. But he's also working his ass off for years. He played on Late Night as a drummer for years.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. That's why he's a kick-ass drummer. So anyway, when I heard this guy, I'm trying to stall so I can find his name, but I can't. Anyway, his social media game was off the charts. Good. The way he documented and told stories and stuff, like, the work is what's driving. The results of what he's putting out is what's driving the success. Mm-hmm. No one's handing him a ticket, you know?
Yeah.
And granted, it happens here and there, like where somebody wins a lottery. But you're not trying to be successful. Compare yourself to lottery winners. You're comparing yourself, in a sense, to peers and colleagues who are also pursuing the same things, doing the same work.
Yeah.
So when people do get successful, it's encouraging because you're like, okay, we're all like eating out of this shit sandwich. And you can get a bite, like if you're hacking away, but you have to do it, you know.
And then there's someone like Lil Nas X, who it sounds like he worked very hard until that one song, but that one song broke.
Sure.
And then he also happens to be sort of a genius, you know.
He doesn't
incidentally.
He doesn't incidentally. He knows exactly what he's
But
doing.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
The order, I don't know if the song broke because.
It was nothing, one song, something. It wasn't like this gradual buildup, but he was also able to.
Exactly.
You've
heard of the one-hit wonder. I met people in my day who couldn't match it and do it.
Right. And
so clearly, maybe the timing was that he blew up in some sense first, but has the wherewithal to maintain it.
Yeah, that's
blowing
what I mean.
up for a second
cool to see.
also sucks.
Right.
But being good at your craft is what you want, so that you can just maintain it and move past the big hits. You don't want to be like stuck in that zone. Because I've seen people who that one hit wonder phase where they can't match what that initial spark or initial thing.
Maybe I'm wrong about it. Maybe he had an audience before that.
Yeah.
I don't think he did.
Oftentimes, more often than not, I would say.
Yeah.
You found him when you found him, and everybody else found him when they found him at that same time. I mean, you assumed he just appeared. But the phrase 10 years to an overnight success, 10 years to an overnight success is very true.
But he's not I think he literally was a person in his room making music. It wasn't like a band where like there was sort of a community.
And that's what a lot of the platforms, TikTok and the like. There's a guy, Ty Verdes, on TikTok who also is playing festivals now, and he's been doing it. He was like, a year ago, I was a barista, and now I'm up here at Coachella. So when I see that, I'm like, whew, wow. Compared to the years and years spent in the grind and stuff. But the intersection, and then I asked myself, did I take advantage of the platform when it came out when he did? Probably not. Like, he hit that TikTok, his TikToking and content creation was what helped drive his stuff. It's not like I did the same exact things either.
Yeah.
You know, I might have let that one slip by. So I tend to just be very encouraged when other people are successful for that reason. If you believe, which I do, that most of it's a result of a lot of hard work and grit and determination and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see how this podcast does. I don't know.
This one was more serious.
A little bit.
I think we jumped right into it.
Yeah, because...
Maybe more my style than your style.
Good. We leaned more...
Yeah.
No, we did some funny shtick, too. That's okay. I'm not so self-conscious about it. I don't care about other people's opinions. I'm just going to riff now as Gary Vee for 30 minutes on some real shit to make this fucking funny as fuck. Any other final thoughts before we close out episode 2?
I have ideas for next time about the cult of content creation and where it's leading us.
We did a fake ad, what we thought of on the spot. That was Alexander's butt cream. Alexander's ass cream from Russia. So we'll clip that. So what's the next?
We can't just say Squarespace is sponsoring us, you know? We can just say it. We can't just say it.
What would they care?
Yeah.
Brought to you by Squarespace.
Just say it.
And GoDaddy.
And GoDaddy and
Go Mommy.
What else?
Go Mommy.
MeUndies.
That's the patriarchy. Go Mommy. MeUndies. For years, I used to call it MeUndies around the house. Hey, MeUndies, and then that came out, so we were just we'd crack up about that. Next week on Buckle Up, tell us, Michael.
I think I got some ideas. We'll
next week on Buckle Up, Michael's got some ideas. Anyway, that's Buckle Up episode 2.
yeah.
Congrats, Michael.
Thank you. We did it.
It's harder to do 2 than
Hopefully
1.
the video came out and the audio came out. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting us. Even just a nice, encouraging word is very, very helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, and we hit 10 followers in a single day.
Yeah, look at that.
In a single day. So
Yeah.
that was amazing. One of them was a sex bot. Mm-hmm. Yes, I shared it on our story, and the account got flagged for community guidelines on the very first day. I almost had to shut it down and start it again.
So the account is allowed to exist on Instagram, but you're not allowed to talk about that account on Instagram.
I don't know. Oh, exactly.
They
Punished
an Instagram
me
account.
for her showing her
Yeah.
ass to me. That wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. And shout out again to Tim Dillon,
Yes, thank
who
you.
shared a clip on my other Instagram at AJ Comedy. He shared a clip of this podcast, and we're huge fans of Tim.
And
so
his producer Ben.
Yeah, it was
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
that was really exciting.
we appreciate it. And I have to say, Michael was the one who introduced me to Tim Dillon, and we saw you guys live at the Shadow Band show at the Comedy Store in LA, which really kind of changed my whole outlook and inspired me as far as comedy. It was you, it was Tim Dillon, Andrew Schultz, Andrew Santino, and Tony Hinchcliffe murdering like I've never seen the room shaking with laughter.
Extremely exciting moment.
It was like we were at an underground rock show. It was so cool.
Yeah. I felt like there was like a movement happening that was starting in that room. It was really cool. It was at December 2019, right before.
And the funny thing is, Tim went first on that set, and we were online and we were just listening in.
Yeah.
And you know what you said? You were like listening in and going, you were cracking up. I'm like, what's funny? He's like, he's talking about Gary Vee. And this was right.
Oh, that was before, yeah.
He was like, Gary? Where do we start? It's like, execute or think about it. I think you should do both. Yeah. Okay, where do we meet?
He's like, I'm in the mall with the gun. What do I do now?
What do I do, Gary? Come, do we start a business together? Tell me. Okay? And he was just starting. And then in the meet and greet afterwards, all the other comics were getting a lot of attention. And I remember seeing at some point, Tim was kind of like chilling to himself because his thing had... which is amazing. And I didn't know him that well. It was like I'd barely seen any stuff.
I guess he's grown a lot since then. Yeah, through COVID, I think he's grown
Oh my God, his show has just exploded. Yeah. It's good for him. It's so funny. I don't know if he was doing the podcast just yet. Or
no, that's the only way I knew him. So for sure.
Oh, okay. So it was starting. Clearly, on the list, you had Hinchcliffe and Schultz, and a bunch of people. But even Schultz wasn't flagrant too huge yet.
He opened it, so I guess he was the smallest.
Sorry.
All right.
All right, we're going to call it for today. That's episode 2 of Buckle Up
Buckle
with
up, baby.
Ami and Mike.
That was cool.
That was cool.